Me, I'm Claire Thomas and I run Life Skills with Mrs. T. So it's great to have you here today listening to this Leading Self webinar, and this is all about learning how to lead your life in the midst of uncertainty and change. So what brings me here today? So I am a business owner, children's nurse, teacher in adult learning, nutritional therapist in the making, and lover of sewing, baking, triathlons and cooking, so not much. So I'm here today. So I've been running Life Skills with Mrs. T for over a year now. I started it in April 2019, and there's been quite a journey to get to this point. So back in the day when I was nursing on intensive care, my dream was to become an advanced nurse practitioner. But then I became ill with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I don't know if anyone knows much about chronic fatigue syndrome, but basically 12-hour shifts, night shifts, and extreme fatigue do not mix at all. So I sort of had to give that up, and I ended up moving into community nursing. And from there, a kind of vision was developed and born about how I wanted to create a space for people who've lost their jobs. So when I obviously had to move into community nursing, there was a process of grief, of not feeling valued, of feeling a bit lost, and also I was dealing with illness as well. So all these feelings come about when we lose jobs, or we're in a place that we don't quite want to be. So at that time I was doing community nursing, this vision started to develop, and I decided to start a business. And I was actually doing afternoon teas delivered to your door, so that was a lot of fun. But that was in Edinburgh. And I decided to move home back to Devon because I really wanted to be close to my family. And so I left the business, I decided to stop the business when I moved home. And then fast forward a few years, I really was enjoying community nursing. I'd moved into healthcare education and was just really enjoying that. And then last year, I decided to start up Life Skills with Mrs. T, and was doing sewing classes at that point, which I still do. And restructuring happened in the environment that I was in, and all of a sudden my job that I loved just wasn't there anymore. And I kind of had a choice, really. I had a choice to kind of try and work it out to see if I could stay and figure out a different version of the job that I liked, or the opportunity came about to retrain and go back to university and do a master's in nutritional therapy and build Life Skills with Mrs. T. So I took that leap of faith and did that. So why Leading Self has come about, so that's kind of what's brought me to this point. Leading Self has come about mostly through lockdown, actually. I found that lockdown for me has been a real chance to, because I now do face-to-face sewing and first aid training. And so it gave me a chance to reflect, to kind of see where I was and what I wanted to do. And I've recognized over the years the value in personal development, how mindset and habits have helped me progress to having a vision and wanting to kind of reach that. And I've done leadership training, and I've done a qualification, and I've also taught it. So through that, I've learned the value of, nothing can really be achieved until we can lead ourselves. So through lockdown, I was sort of thinking, okay, what can I do to bring this all together and help other people, through these times of uncertainty and change? And oh, sorry, I just got distracted there by something. And so I've come to this place where, I wanted to do Leading Self. So this is where the webinar comes in. So this is going to be, I'm going to chat for probably about, hopefully, an hour. And then it will be over to you guys to ask questions. So there is a Q&A box hopefully it's popped up on the bottom of this screen. So if you feel the need to put questions in as we go along, that's absolutely fine. I just won't answer them until the end of the session, just so I can share what Leading Self is all about. And then we'll have about hopefully half an hour to answer any questions that you guys may have. And this is being this is being recorded. So if I start talking too fast, or if you're like, oh, actually, I really like that point, but I haven't written it down, don't worry, you will get sent a replay of today's webinar so that you can play at your own speed and write notes as you go along. So let's start. So that's where we are today. So let's start with first things first. Whenever it comes to leading self, I think one of the first places to start is what we're going to cover today. So we're going to look at, and obviously this is an overview. We're not going into too much depth. We've got an hour, and some of these subjects you could go into depth over weeks, you know. So this is just a real overview that hopefully you can get something that you want from it. You might just take one thing away that you go, actually, that's going to help me today. And it's just taking what you need right now, and it's just tools to help you learn to flourish where you're at right now. So we're going to look at perspective and the idea of reframing, mindset, the power of daily habits, planning and goal setting, and physical health. So perspective. Now, you've all probably, sorry, too quick with the clicking. Now, you've probably all seen this quote before. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And Henry Ford is the one that's often accredited to this statement. However we view the world is the way we view the world. And it's influenced by the past, it's influenced by situations we found ourselves in, and it affects our future, and it affects how we see opportunities, experiences, and challenges. And I think one of the things with perspectives is that we've got to be able to recognize that we've all got our blind spots. We've all got things that we can't see, that that because of our experiences that cloud what we see in front of us. So being able to see things from a different viewpoint can help us enormously when faced with an opportunity or a challenge and faced with the way that we're going to deal with it. So I always like to think of looking at different perspectives as a way of data gathering. We're sort of looking at it from different angles. Perhaps we're going to look at it from a different way that people might feel, or how another person might see it, so that we can gather all the data and make an informed choice. So there's a picture here of a helicopter pad. So you would see one of these on hospital. And I find this is really a good way, they call it the helicopter model, funny enough, of helping us to look at perspective and look at how we can view it in different ways. So the first things first, I think if you're ever finding yourself getting overwhelmed by something, or you feel like you just can't see the wood for the trees. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had that feeling before where everything is just, you know, crowded and noisy, and you're like, oh, I just don't know which way to go. Sometimes in those situations, it's about taking a deep breath. So it's like calm. There's something really in just taking a deep breath, just helps calm everything. And just go, okay, what's going on here? What is the bigger picture? And there's 4 ways of looking at a situation that can help you gain a different perspective. So looking at it from your point of view, what am I reacting to? So that's, you know, if you're becoming overwhelmed by something, what is causing overwhelm? What does this situation mean to me? Is there something that's gone on in the past that's making me react right now? Others, what would this look like to others involved? So if it's a situation you're in or a difficult conversation, could you put yourself in the place of the other person and see how they would view a difficult conversation, for example? So thinking about it in a logical mind, what would be the best thing for me, for others, for this situation? So trying to think about it logically. And then an outsider, how would this seem to someone outside the situation, so not emotionally involved? And you know, when we're in situations, there is always going to be emotion involved, because we're human beings and we have emotions, and that's not a wrong thing. But sometimes our fears, our doubts, even our excitement, sometimes we can get overexcited and want to rush in and do something, can cloud our judgment. So sometimes it is taking that emotion out of things to think things in a logical manner. And I think about this a lot when I've looked after children in the past. So as I've said, I'm a children's nurse, and I've got friends who have children and are children's nurses, and they've been in hospital with their children. And they say they find it incredibly difficult to watch the nurse taking blood from their child, even though they themselves have been in that situation where they've had to take blood from a child. but it's because as a parent, you are understandably emotionally involved and you don't want your child to have to deal with that. But as the nurse, as the someone who can take a step back, we can say, actually, this test is needed because this test will help us find out what's wrong with the individual and will help us to treat them. So it's sometimes, if you can remove the emotion from it, you can see things from a more logical viewpoint and bringing this together. And that's what I was saying about the data gathering, looking at all these different perspectives. We can gather the data and help us to make the best decision that we can. So looking then at mindset, because mindset impacts also how we view the world. Mindset and perspectives are very linked. You know, they can also, how we view the world is also seen by the way we think. So I really like Carol Dweck, and she's got a book called Mindsets, and she's broken it down into 2 mindsets that we can have. And it's not a case of you've either got fixed mindset or you've either got growth mindset, and I will obviously explain what the 2 are. It's a combination of situations. So in one situation, you might well have a fixed mindset, but in another situation, you might have a growth mindset. But it's about recognizing how we react to situations, how we react to challenges. So according to Carol Dweck, the fixed mindset is intelligence is static. So there could be 2 things in that. It could be that, for example, at school, you perhaps were told that you were no good, that you'd never be able to learn. Perhaps you were told you were stupid. For example, Thomas Edison was told by his teacher he was too stupid to learn, and look at everything that he's gone on to achieve. Or on the flip side, it could be that perhaps you were very intelligent at school, to the point that, you know, things came easily to you, that you didn't really have to try, that things just happen. That could also be a fixed mindset, but I will kind of explain that a little bit more. So the thing with a fixed mindset is there's often a desire to kind of stay comfortable, stay where we're at, stay almost, some people might say that they feel a bit stuck. So if you've got a fixed mindset, you might want to avoid challenges. You might give up easily because you want to stay in your comfort zone. You want to stay in that safety zone. You see effort as fruitless or can make things worse because, you know, sometimes stepping out of our comfort zone need us to do things differently. So for example, at the moment, I'm doing a master's in nutritional therapy, and it's been very challenging to go and do study in a subject that actually I know very little about because I'm a nurse. And so if I had a fixed mindset, I probably wouldn't have gone and done it. I probably would have just sat and gone, do you know what, I'll stick with what I know. I'm a good nurse. I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to avoid it. I'm just not going to learn. Whereas a growth mindset is all about actually, it's like learning something might be really challenging, but I can embrace that, and I can embrace that challenge to learn, and I can put things in place that can help me learn and develop. So, you know, things like, I will persist even when it's challenging. I will say, okay, well, if I'm struggling, who can I ask for help? What can I read? What can I search on the internet? Perhaps there's some YouTube videos. That means that I can grow and develop in the skill of nutritional therapy. I often see it with some of my students who come on the sewing classes, and I love watching this. They'll come and they'll be like, I can't sew. I can't, you know, so I say, you're going to make this bag. And they're like, no, I can't do it. I just cannot do it. And I smile to myself because I've never had no one make it yet. But the fact is, the fact that they've come to the class means that there is a growth mindset there because they want to learn and they want to develop. And by the end of it, they have a bag. And it's amazing to watch that, because what they've done is they've made sure they've put effort in. So the effort was signing up for a class, coming to the class, putting the effort in on following the instructions, having somebody there. Obviously, they've got someone there to teach them, but that's okay, because it's about the initial viewpoint of, I want to learn, I want to be better. I can learn from criticism. So perhaps during the class, I might have to say, I mean, there's been a few times where perhaps the sewing's gone wonky and they've ended up with wonky lines and we've had to unpick them. But that's okay, because it's like, well, that didn't quite go to plan, but how are we going to do it better next time? For example, I sent out an email about an hour ago, and then when I checked the email, I realized there was a bit of a mistake in it, and it was like, okay, not ideal, but how am I going to do it better next time? So it's that whole thing of learning from feedback, taking what we need to be able to learn, grow, and push ourselves forward. And there's another way of looking at it as well. I always think of a fixed mindset as life happening to you, and a growth mindset as life happening for you. So if life is happening to you, you sort of lost control. There's no control element. I have no control over what's happening. And that's where, you know, things can get a bit more, there's a bit more anxiety, stress, because it's, you have no control in the situation. Whereas life happening for you is about recognizing what can I control in that moment. So if I take COVID, you know, as a prime example at the moment, having a recently, you know, new business. So I've been self-employed, fully self-employed since about October, November time. And then COVID hits. It, you know, there was a few challenges in that. Okay, you know, so a fixed mindset would be, do you know what, I'm going to go to bed and I'm not getting back up. Or could have been, I'm just giving up business and I'm going to go back to nursing. They need people on the front line. I chose not to go back to nursing because of my health. I felt that actually it was more sensible to stay and build the business. So I could have done that, but I was actually like, right, what can I control right now? Yes, my income has disappeared from my face-to-face because obviously government guidelines with that, you know, we weren't allowed to do face-to-face training. Thankfully, first aid is back up and running now, but sewing is still taking a little bit of time. So, okay, I can't do that, but what have I got in my hands? So I've got the ability, I've got internet, I've got a computer, I could put things online. So I took the decision to then put what I could online, you know, make kits, do virtual sewing, do virtual first aid, and here I am doing Leading Self. So sometimes it's about going, okay, what can I control in the moment? So I can't control the economy, I can't control what's happening outside, but I can control with my business right now that if I put stuff online, then that might help other people, or it might help bring in some income. So it's right now going, what can I control and what can I do in this moment to help me move forward? So here are some examples of fixed and growth mindset statements that you might say to yourself. And it's really important that we can learn to hear these kind of fixed voices, or, you know, that voice in your head that's always there. You know, the amount that we say to ourselves is incredible. But it's sort of recognizing when we start to hear these sorts of statements and learning how we can change them. So I can't learn now, I'm too old. Could be turned into, I can learn whatever I need to when I need to. One of my friends' grandmas actually went back to university in her 50s to become a reverend. So, you know, you can go back and do whatever you need to do whenever you want to do it. Well, there's no point in trying, I'm only going to fail. Now, I always like this is something I try and say to myself quite a lot. There is no failure, only feedback. So it's trying to see, so I always look at one example of this is I failed my driving test 4 times. So I passed on my 5th time. And it wasn't that I couldn't drive. The driving instructors used to get completely exasperated with me because I could drive. I just got into the car with the examiner and we'd be like this, I'd shake so much. But that experience did help me recognize the importance of just keep going. To actually go each time I failed. Now, I look back now, and at the time obviously I did not think about it in this way, but if I look back now and I go, well, you know, every time I failed or I got I forget if it's minor or majors on your test, okay, well that didn't quite work. I'll work on that so I can improve better. So if I think about that email I sent an hour ago, okay, I forgot to do something. So next time I send an email, I must make sure I do that. So it's about reassessing. And if we go back to Thomas Edison, it took him, I think it was almost 1,000 attempts to get the light bulb. And he's like, you know, with each light bulb, I knew something didn't work, so I tried it differently. I always struggle with staying away from the crisps. It might seem a bit funny, but I'm a bit of a crisp addict. But I know that actually, if I say I always struggle, then I've kind of given up and I'm going to eat the crisps. Whereas if I say I can always resist the crisp if I want to, but it will take effort. And I think that's the thing with a growth mindset, is recognizing that things will take effort and determination to achieve. Other people are better at it than I am. I am uniquely me, and I can bring something different to the table. If they are succeeding, so can I. And some of that is also about, you know, recognizing where people are. So say you've got a role model or someone you admire at work or just in life who is doing something that you want to do. It's not about copying what they're doing, but recognizing, okay, well, how are they succeeding? Perhaps they might share with you about the mindset they have or things they put in place to help them succeed, that you could kind of go, okay, actually that might work for me. So it's recognizing that we are all unique and we bring something different to the table, and we can all succeed. And it is about that hard work, that effort and determination. So just to sum a little bit there on mindset, it is about just listening and how we're going to respond to that voice. What we focus on grows. So if we focus on if we think back on the what we can do and what we can't do, we're right. If we focus on the I can't do's, then that's what we won't ever be able to do that. But if we focus on the I can learn, I can grow, and I can develop, then we will be able to meet the goals that we want to achieve. And mindset is something that is a lifelong process. You know, if I look back on my own journey, I'm definitely in a different place than I was 10 years ago, but it is something that is still a daily challenge. You know, if I look at doing something like Leading Self, there would have been a time where I probably would have panicked and gone, oh, I'm never going to do that. I can't do that. I can't put myself out there on a webinar. But actually now I can go, actually, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to learn from it, and I will develop, and I will grow, and I will get better. And the more virtual stuff I do, because teaching virtually is very different to teaching face-to-face, the better I get. And it is that, you know, often it's practice and just being consistent. So I always think this is quite an interesting statement. Feeling stressed and anxious can be a form of habit. Now, I wouldn't say it's always the case, because there are obviously, you know, people suffer with anxiety and stress, and that it's not always a habit. But I do find fear is a type of mindset. And I know for me, sometimes fear and feeling stressed and worried is like putting a security blanket on. I want to cuddle in and I want to worry, because sometimes worrying is what I know how to do, because I am a bit of a worrier sometimes. And sometimes it takes more courage to step out of that and go, it's okay, what can I control right now? So last night, for example, my husband's job is up for renewal next month. And I hit this worry, and I was like, what are we going to do if he loses his job? And it's like, and he's a bit more pragmatic and a bit more logical than I am. He's like, it's okay, we'll figure it out. You know, and I was like, but actually, and he's like, well, what will worrying get you? And it's true. I mean, a lot of people say, what does worrying get you? And it's recognizing that whilst that fear, sometimes that worrying might make me feel safe or might want me to play safe, actually it's not beneficial for me, because it can keep me stuck. In that moment, it was about recognizing, what do I have control of? I don't have control over what his company's doing. I don't have control over whether or not they'll keep him. All I have control over is, okay, we've had this conversation. You recognize that it is a worry, but I'm not going to worry about it, because until it happens, there's not a lot I can do about it. So right now, I'm going to choose to just say, okay, when we get to that, because he always said, we'll deal with it when we get there. And I can get a little bit, you know, like, oh, frustrated and go, oh, crumbs. No, we've got to think about it. But sometimes, actually, we don't need to think about it. We can, you know, wait and see what happens before we decide what's going to happen next. And sometimes if you are in that place of worrying, anxiety, stress, it's figuring out, well, what is driving me? Why am I worrying so much about this? Is it about the situation, or is it about a past experience? You know, can you unpick it to kind of figure out what it is that is triggering this fear? Sometimes, you know, understanding what's triggering our fear can help us understand how to move forward. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, it's about coming back into the moment. That could be wiggling your toes, that could be breathing, taking a deep breath. You know, as I said before, it can be really calming. Put some music on and dance if you're feeling a bit stressed out. And I mean, you might not be able to do this in the middle of an office. I mean, if you can, great. just put some music on, dance, and just move your body. Sometimes just moving our bodies and doing something different can get us out of that spiral, can help us to just take a step back and go, okay, I'm fine, I'm safe. Be okay with no. I think rejection is really tough, and it can be hard when we get rejected to think, oh gosh, what have I done wrong? You know, what is it about me? And sometimes it is nothing about what any of us have done wrong. Sometimes it could just be that you weren't quite the right candidate for the job, or your idea wasn't quite right at this moment. And things like that. It could be that we need to reflect and go, okay, where perhaps could I have done better in this moment? But it's about learning, developing, and growing, you know, taking the information that we need to in order to move forward. Now we get to choose, I love this, we get to choose what is bigger, courage or fear. So we will always feel fear, doubt, anxiety, stress, you know, that is part of our human makeup. But we get to choose if we're going to choose bigger than that fear. You know, am I going to choose courage? Am I going to choose joy? Am I going to choose love? And we get to say, do you know what, the fear might be there, but I'm going to do something bigger, and I'm going to choose that courage. So moving on now, we're going to look at daily habits and how I found daily habits have been really beneficial to helping me stick to my goals, helping me to achieve things that I want to achieve. Now, a lot of people will talk about 21 days as a way to form a habit, but actually that's just to get us started. It can take up to 63 days to create a habit, which might seem like quite a long time, but actually it needs to become ingrained in us so that it's second nature, so that at times of hardship, at times of uncertainty, it's so ingrained within us that we can just do it automatically. And I find that with my morning routine, I've got such a routine in place that if I don't do it, I find that I struggle with the day, because I haven't had that time to be quiet, I haven't had that time to process, I haven't had that time to plan, and that really does impact on my day. So it is about kind of starting small, really. So I guess when it comes to habits, you can have good habits and you can have not so good habits. So as I mentioned about crisps earlier, actually for me, sometimes eating crisps is more of a habit than it is something that just because I enjoy crisps. You know, it could be that I'm watching a film and I'm just going to eat crisps because that's what I do. It's a habit. And so in order to change a habit, or in order to start a habit, we need to make our why quite big. So when I talk about why, it's about knowing why you want to do it. So why do I not want to eat crisps? Well, for me, if I eat too many crisps, I eat too many chips, my skin starts to get spotty. So my why is that actually I want to have clearer skin. So in doing that, I'm going to eat less crisps, less chips, for example. So that means whenever I'm come to that place where I'm like, I've got crisps, okay, well, this is why I'm not going to eat them. And you don't need to go too big with habits. Like, so if I think about a morning routine, which it has, like I say, it's been really important for me for staying motivated and keeping my goals. You know, so I get up at 6:30 and my alarm clock is across the room. So it could be that you go, actually, I'm really bad at getting up in the mornings. So one tip that I could have for you is that put your alarm clock across the room. So I literally have to get out of bed to switch it off. So there's no options there. There are the occasions where I will still go back to bed, but generally once you're up, you're up. You know, you've got that momentum, you're up out of bed. It's like, well, there's no point in pressing a snooze button because I'm already up. I'll turn it off and get going. So that could be one thing. Perhaps a habit would just be moving. So I've done all these things like step by step. You know, I've moved the alarm clock to the other side of the room. I also have an alarm clock that has a sunrise because I can't deal with being shocked out of sleep. I don't know about you, but if I'm shocked out of sleep, I am terrible for the rest of the day. I feel irritable, my brain doesn't quite function, and I'm not quite with it. And you might find that if you've got children, or perhaps a partner that, you know, if they get up and you're woken up by them, that you might feel a little bit like, oh, no, I've got to get up now. So could you, for example, get up that bit earlier? So I actually get up about an hour and a half before my husband does. But for me, you know, that time of being able to sit and be quiet before he's up and the TV's on is really valuable for me. So it's kind of thinking about, oh, could I get up half an hour before my kids or my partner gets up, so that you can have that time and space to create that routine. So that could be, so a routine that works for you. I mean, I'll share what works for me, and it is about developing, and this is, for me, has developed over time. But I do follow something called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Elrod. And he's created this thing called Savers. And I don't quite do it like this, but I kind of do fit all the elements into my routine. So the first one is silence. And for me, I have a faith. So for me, the silence involves praying. For you, it could just be a cup of tea and, you know, just allowing the silence of the morning when the world quite hasn't woken up, to just silence you, formulate your thoughts, to have a think and reflect. Now, I would always say I don't turn my phone on until I've done my morning routine, because the minute my phone's on, I'm distracted by what the world's doing. So even if I put, you know, so that's the one thing, partly why I get up before my husband as well, because he puts the news on. And if the news is on or my phone's on, I'm distracted. I'm thinking about what's happening to other people. And actually, for me, just in that morning, I want to be able to focus my time on God, and I want to be able to focus on what I need to do for the day. So that's where silence comes in. Then we look at affirmations. Now, affirmations, or another way of saying it is framing, are kind of positive statements that we say to encourage and motivate ourselves to achieve goals. Now, you do have to be careful with them, because you need to believe them. So if we don't believe them, all we do is create a conflict in amongst ourselves. So for example, what we might say as an affirmation is, I am brilliant and successful, but you might not believe that. So if you're saying I'm brilliant and successful, all that, like I say, is happening is that kind of war. But you could change it to, I believe I have the potential to release the brilliance inside of me, and daily I will spend 1 to 3 minutes consciously and deliberately achieving this goal. So sometimes it's almost recognizing that, yes, I can get there, but I might need a bit of time to get there. Visualization is B in the Savers, and that's I love visualization, because when you look at the science behind it, it's fascinating. So it turns out that if we imagine something and visualize it, or it actually happens, our brains can't tell the difference. So you often hear about athletes doing this. They'll visualize how they're going to run, how they're going to get off the starting blocks, how they're going to get to the finish line. And to our brains, it's the same thing. So I earlier have visualized, how am I going to turn up for this webinar? How am I going to act? How am I going to speak? You know, to help my brain sort of be prepared for this webinar. And you might want to do that, you know, say you've got an important meeting ahead. It could be focusing on, how am I going to act? And it's all about focusing on what I'm going to do, because I can control that, not what other people are going to do. So it's, how will I turn up to talk to my boss? How will I act? How will I feel? And sometimes working through it can help us process how we're going to do that. And when we see our goal, and when we can envision our goals and where we want to get to, it can motivate us to get there. Then E stands for exercise, and that's just moving your body. And it doesn't have to be much. You could just do a 5-minute boogie to a song. It's just anything to kind of get your heart beating for a little bit. I tend to try and do 20 to 30 minutes of exercise. I'll explain a bit later. You know, 30 minutes of exercise a day is important if we can manage that. And so I like to do maybe some yoga, or like I basically go on YouTube and see what's there, some yoga, or I'll go for a run. It's just anything that works for you, really. And then R stands for reading. So that's reading something like a personal development book, or for me, it's my Bible. I find that's really important. And then scribing. And so that's where we reflect on what we've learnt and we journal it. And there's something really, you know, when we're able to write down stuff, we're able to process it better. And the science, again, I read a lot of Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she talks a lot about kind of how our brain pathways are formed and develop and change. And things like such as writing down with a pen and paper, how valuable that is in helping us process information and learn it, and it's staying in our memories. So I'd always recommend that, because obviously we're very computer, focused these days, but actually a pen and paper is still really important. So be consistent, because when there are the days where you get up and you don't want to do your routine, actually, because you've done it for, say, the previous 30 days, you're like, do you know what? I kept a promise to myself. I'm going to do it today. Or it could be, make your bed. I'm going to make my bed every day for 30 days. And you know that you've kept that promise to yourself. So if I've kept my promise to myself to make a bed, I can keep a promise to myself to go out for a run, for example. It's just, as we keep promises to ourselves, it helps us to be motivated and say, yeah, I've done that. I can do the next thing. And I would always say allow time for being kind to yourself. So say one morning you get up and don't make your bed. It's not a case of, oh crap, that's it, that's me done. That it's just all over, I just won't bother. It's a case of going, do you know what, I didn't make the bed this morning, and that's okay, but tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to make the bed. So it's just, giving yourself that kindness and going, but I can do that tomorrow, it's okay. I didn't do it today, but tomorrow I will try, and I will do it better. And I always say with reflection is great. It helps us to learn. It helps us to process information, but we also need to, what we learn, we also need to put into action, because without action, we won't see change. And that leads me nicely into planning and goal setting, because obviously we need action in order to meet our goals. So I think whenever it comes to goals, knowing your why is one of the most important things, because if you don't know why you're doing it, well, you're not going to stay motivated and encouraged. So for example, I am now training for a triathlon. I've done them before. I really enjoy doing them because there's different disciplines. You cycle, you swim, and you're running. For anyone that knows my business, you'll know that I'm not one to just do one thing. I like a mixture of everything. But I kind of needed to start from the beginning. When lockdown happened, my fitness, had improved. I was working with a personal trainer at that point, going to the gym a bit more. But with lockdown, obviously that all stopped. But I still needed to keep myself motivated. And my goal is to do a sprint triathlon by the end of the year. So I was like, okay, well, let's use Couch to 5K then. And that was brilliant, because I'm not the best. I used to run quite well before I developed chronic fatigue, but I'm not the best runner these days. So doing something like Couch to 5K was brilliant, because I got to start small, and it fitted into my bigger goal. My bigger goal being, I want to be fit enough to do a sprint triathlon, and I want to improve at running in order to do the sprint triathlon. So sometimes it is about knowing why you're doing something and writing it down, and put it in a place that you can see it. Because if you can see your vision and it's there, and it's like, yeah, there it is, I can read it, I can see it, it'll keep you encouraged and will help. You might not know, okay, well, I'm a bit lost. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what goals I have. I'm not particularly into exercise. I'm not particularly wanting to do anything at work or develop a goal. So it's finding out what energizes you. What, when you're kind of in everyday life, do you find joy in? Do you go, oh God, I really loved that. I really enjoyed doing that. I want to know how to do that better. So if we look at sewing, perhaps you happen to see something, a friend posted a bag she made at a sewing class. And you go, oh, do you know what? That looks fantastic. I would love to know how to do that. I wanted to know how to do that when I was at school. And I mean, that was years ago, but I would love to know how to do that. If that energizes you, then go, okay, actually that's energized me. Perhaps that is a goal I can write down. Or perhaps it's a bigger thing. Perhaps you're feeling a bit lost at the moment. You've perhaps been made redundant, or work's changing. You don't quite know, your dreams have changed, the goals have changed. Again, what energizes you? Have you got an idea of what you want to do in the future? And sometimes you might need to test it out. Now, this is a bit drastic, but I like the heart behind it. So Mel Robbins, who is a coach, and I listened to some of her books, she talks about how she wanted to run a coffee shop. That was one of her dreams. So she went and worked. I think her job had come to an end, something had changed. And so she had a bit more free time, and she goes, do you know what? I'm going to go and work in a coffee shop to see if that's what I want. And so she went to work in a coffee shop and found she hated it because it wasn't about the coffee shop owning. It was about what she loved about coffee shops was the getting to have the coffee, getting to meet people, getting to socialize, having the money to go and buy a coffee, because obviously takeaway coffee isn't always the cheapest, but just having that money to go and buy it. And from there, I mean, she's then developed her goals and dreams, but sometimes in order to find out what energizes you, we have to find out what doesn't, what doesn't work. And I look at it like, I look at a vision sometimes like building blocks. I do have a very definite vision of how I see this business developing, and not everybody has that. But sometimes it's building blocks of going, okay, I know that right now, I might not be able to know what 5 years in the future looks like, but right now I know that I enjoy sewing, so I'm going to go and learn how to sew. And sometimes, and then you go and learn how to sew, and then you go, actually, I've really enjoyed that. Perhaps I want to go and do a more formal course. I want to go to college and learn more techniques, or so sometimes we can start small and go, right, actually, I'm going to learn that skill now, and then I'm going to take the next step. So a bit like me doing the Couch to 5K. From that, now I'm going to run longer and push myself to go faster. So I've reached the goal of, I've done my Couch to 5K. So now actually I'd really like to do 5K in under 30 minutes. And so that's now my goal. So your goals can change. But it's also the vision, like your overall vision will often stay the same, but goals will change within it. And I would say sometimes with goals, it's about okay, this is what I want to do, and breaking it down into manageable chunks. So if I go back to the triathlon example, I talk a lot about exercise, don't I? If I look at the triathlon and go, okay, I want to do a triathlon by December 2020. To be fair, that's probably the end of the season. There is one in Dawlish next month I'm hoping to do. So I know, okay, I want to do a triathlon in September. I'm not quite sure how to train for it, so I'm going to look online. So I looked online and it said, right, this is what you need to do. So now I've got the ability to break that down and go, okay, in order to reach that goal, I know I need to do a combination of cycling, swimming, running, and strength training every week. So that's what I've kind of worked. That's my goal now. So every week into my diary, I plan those things. Granted, swimming is a little bit more challenging at the moment. And that's where we've got to often be flexible. So yes, swimming is a bit of a challenge because my local swimming pool isn't open, but I can go to the sea. Yes, not as often as I'd like, but I can go to the sea and go for a sea swim. So sometimes it's how do we be flexible, but still be able to reach our goals. And also, I find if we try and do too much at once, we can get overwhelmed. And I am the queen of trying to do too much at once. Just ask anyone that knows me. But sometimes we have to be realistic and go, okay, are my goals outcome driven? So when I say that, that means, are they achievable? Are they realistic? Have I set, am I just being completely bonkers and this isn't going to work? Have I set things in place that are achievable? So whilst it's good to push ourselves, we still need to be realistic and achievable in that. And part of that comes also to being realistic to what we can manage in a day. So in my journal, I have a page and it says the top 3 tasks that need to be done today. And then I have a master list for everything else, because I found if I just have a massive to-do list, I got to the end of the day and I would feel discouraged, because instead of seeing what I had done, I would just see everything I haven't done. And so therefore it is a case of, if you can do the top 3 tasks, so keep a long list of things that you need to do. So I have stuff on this list that might not be done for months, but it's just reminding me that I need to do it at some point. But if I know that the 3 tasks for the day, and those top 3 tasks are what I needed to prioritize, I'm prioritizing my work, so I am achieving what I need to achieve in that moment, then I feel a sense of achievement. And when we feel a sense of achievement, we feel motivated and we're engaged to keep going. And that's what you want to do. You want to be able to keep going and keep motivated in your goals. So that's why it's really important to know your why and why you're doing something, because that helps keep you engaged and helps keep you motivated. So days when you don't feel like going out for a run, and there are days where I have to say, do you know what, I don't think my body can manage a run today, but what can I do that will get me moving, that will still keep me on track? So it might be I do some yoga, because there is an element of strength training in that. So it is, you know, sometimes you can't always do what you want to do, but it's being flexible. And then have rewards. I'm not somebody that is particularly like reward driven when I meet my goals, but if that's what works for you, then do that. It could be you buy a new pair of trainers because you've done the Couch to 5K. It could be, do you know what, I aced that presentation, or I stepped out of my comfort zone, I went to talk to my boss, so I'm going to go out and have a nice meal with friends, or I'm going to treat myself to a face mask and a film at home that I've been wanting to see for ages. So, you know, if rewards are something that works and motivates you, then put that into your planning. Plan how you're going to celebrate the wins, because I think we also need to celebrate the small wins. You know, there's so much negativity and self-criticism that we can pour on ourselves. Sometimes we've just got to celebrate the fact that we showed up, that we've met our goals, and that we're walking towards where we want to go. And then last but not least, physical health. How important that is in leading ourselves. So physical health is just not about exercise and nutrition, but also the ability to rest and play. So prior to CARS, the only reason that we would be sedentary is due to illness or injury. And actually moving your body for 30 minutes a day where possible, and I appreciate that it's not possible for everyone to do full exercise, but that could be maybe I could do some yoga, maybe I could go and play with my kids in the garden, maybe I could do some gardening, or just go for a walk. It's doing whatever you can wherever you're at. So I remember when I was really poorly, you know, walking was a real struggle, but I felt like for me it was the best thing I could do. So I remember there was a supermarket about 10-minute walk away, and I would walk and sit at every bench all the way up the street, because for me I knew that actually just being able to get out and move was really good, and it also stopped me being stuck in front of the TV because I just would watch too much TV. And also things like if you're sat sewing, or if you're sat at your computer, and where possible, because I appreciate if you're in the office and you're in a meeting, it's not, you can't really just get up and walk around, but we need to kind of move every 50 minutes. The thing is, if we don't move, we actually end up with more, we can become more injured as a consequence. So, you know, moving where possible, stretching, kind of, you know, every 50 minutes, set a timer if you need to, just helps us really. And I would say with exercise, start small. I think again, if we do too much, we can actually injure ourselves. So with exercise, doing too much is as bad as doing nothing. So you kind of need to start in the middle really. And again, you know, if you don't do any exercise now, just think, okay, well, what could I do? Could I go for a 10-minute walk? Or could I do some beginner's yoga? I mean, YouTube is great, just, you know, for free exercise. And I think with lockdown, that's been one of the great things, is there's so much available on YouTube. So just take a look. Or is it, I want to learn how to run? And I would recommend the Couch to 5K app, you know, because it takes things really slowly, which means you're able to keep going, because it's not I'm just going to put my shoes on and I'm going to run as fast as I can, collapse, injure myself, and then not go out again. It is just taking it slowly. And if you want to go to the gym, I mean, obviously gyms are just starting to open, but looking at the gym, it could be, okay, if I sign up for a gym membership, or could I ask one of the trainers at the gym to set me a program that's acceptable for where I'm at? So it is, start with where you've got, and then as you improve, as you get stronger and fitter, then you can kind of step it up a bit more. Now, nourishing your body also helps you flourish, and it is sometimes about choosing salad over chips, and that's mostly for me because I love chips. But I look at it like a car engine. If we put the wrong oil into the engine, over time it loses its effectiveness and doesn't work as efficiently as it could do. And we're like that. If we put the, you know, if we eat the wrong foods for us, then we become sluggish and tired and not quite right. And a lot of it is about learning what's right for you and learning how your body reacts to certain things. So for me, I very much learned that I'm unable to eat wheat, lots of dairy, lots of sugar and alcohol. Because actually when I do start eating that, my gut becomes out of balance. And I mean, the gut health is fascinating, and the fact that our guts are like second brains. But if my gut's out of balance, I just feel sluggish and tired. My brain goes foggy. I don't feel right. I don't really want to engage, or I'm not very motivated. And so I know actually it's better for me to eat foods that nourish my body, that mean that I can do everything that I want to do. Play. Now, I love this. Play allows for innovation and creativity. And I love a bit of Brené Brown. She's fantastic. She talks a lot about vulnerability for anyone that wants to look her up. And I find this especially for cycling, I find, because I don't listen to any, so when I run, I tend to listen to a podcast or music, but with cycling, I don't. And it very much does give me that time to be mindful, to let the world just fall away and just process things that are on my mind. And I have come up with class ideas, you know, I've thought about content whilst I've been cycling. And also sewing does that, but only if I'm sewing something I know how to sew. So I've been making a lot of face masks lately. And because the face masks, you know, I've made them so many times, I can do them without thinking too much. Actually, that allows me to think about, you know, content. It allows me to think about classes. And play isn't just for children, it's for adults as well. And it's really important that we play. And we might think, you know, the more we work, the more we do, but that's not a case. The more we work, the less productive we can become. We can get tired and our focus goes and our motivation goes. So actually it's recognizing when we are getting tired, when we need to take breaks, or actually just saying, actually, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to wait till tomorrow. Things like putting, where possible, because I appreciate everyone's work situation is different, but you know, can you turn your work phone off when you get home? Put that boundary on. So actually when you get home, you're able to enjoy time with your family, or if you're out with friends, you can enjoy that time with friends. You know, can I put an out of office on if you're worried that if you're away for a day, or you know, you're going to get too many emails? Is it things like putting an out of office on? Is it having those conversations with your boss if you feel you are working too much? As a self-employed person, I do have to put those boundaries on myself, because I could work, well, I can work any amount of hours as I want really, but I have to put the boundaries on myself in order to allow myself to rest, in order to allow myself to play and be the most productive that I can be. Sleep is really important, and I would encourage you that if you struggle to get up in the morning, is there anything you could do to, you know, go to bed a bit earlier the night before? You know, could you go to bed half an hour before? Could you not look at devices for about an hour before you go to bed? Because, you know, research shows that the blue light can interrupt our ability to get to sleep, interrupts our melatonin production, which helps with sleep. Could you do some reading? I mean, it doesn't work for everyone. I do tend to read before I go to bed. It helps me wind down. But again, it just depends on you. And then I like this. There has been a Banksy artwork that has been doing the rounds with this statement: if you get tired, learn to rest, not quit. And I think that's the whole thing with leading self. You know, when you know what motivates you, what energizes you, what keeps you going, when you get tired, you will hopefully learn that actually it's just about self-care and resting. It's not about quitting. I can keep going. Tomorrow's another day. I can pick myself up and I can move forward. So I really want to thank you for joining me. Obviously, that was a quick whistle-stop tour in what I have found has helped me lead myself. And I'm hoping that you have found something useful within this webinar. I am now running a 4-week program, which starts on the 24th of August, so each week is a 60-minute kind of Zoom teaching session where we delve deeper into these topics that I've discussed today. You'll also get a workbook and access to a private Facebook group where we can just delve deeper into this content. Now I'm going to send you an email with the webinar replay that'll also include all the details of this program. And if you do sign up before next Monday, you'll also get an hour's one-to-one coaching with me as part of the deal. So again, I want to really thank you for your time.